Hello and welcome to Keeping Up With Conspicuous. We've got the wonderful David Gersten on today, who will be, and our topic is all things to do with ISVs and the community. So welcome, David. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Alex, and the rest of the Conspicuous team. I'm real excited and honored to be on such a well-known podcast or webcast or whatever we call these things nowadays. But it's been fun. I know we've been planning this for a while, so I'm excited
Yeah.
to get going.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming on. And in today's episode, what we're going to talk about for anyone watching and listening is um, kind of the aspect of community and the links. David's, as he'll go through in a sec, is kind of uniquely positioned, and he's worked on for ISVs, for partners, for end users. So he's kind of done everything. So he can give us a really good overview of what, how to collaborate to make those partnerships successful. So, so why don't we start with a little bit of background about yourself and what you've done throughout your career to get you to this point.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I had to do some research. I actually had to look up back at my LinkedIn to kind of get this accurate. So February of 2011. So 14 years ago, I started as a sales and marketing director at a small Microsoft Sage VAR. And it was funny. I didn't even know what ERP was at that time. I had been working for a telecom company. They were actually one of my customers.
Okay.
Had a field service division that I had sold several hundred cell phones to. And had the conversation, and they were like, "You know what, David? You probably could be doing something a little different than selling $40 lines." Because I had come from like working at Xerox and other big organizations selling lots of people, process, and technology. So I understood what solutions were, but I really didn't know what an ERP was. So I went in there. It was a great opportunity. From there, I basically went through a journey of about 10 years across three different value-added resellers, all primarily in the Microsoft GP CRM space, a little bit of Modern Office. Launched two Business Central practices at two different VARs, and one became Partner of the Year. One was later acquired by a global organization. So really exciting, successful. Knew nothing about Navision at the time. I was growing up in the GP space primarily, except for that first gig a little bit. But really excited. During that time, I spent a lot of time in community. That was really where I grew up. So immediately I got involved in IAMCP, International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners. Ran the Southern California chapter for a while. Held every position in that organization, and then moved up to the National U.S. Americas Board. So really just strived on how people work together. And then also the last thing I did for community was actually two. I did Voices for Innovation, so VFI, so kind of the advisor, the advocacy program for Microsoft to really look at technology and cloud privacy. Got to go up to the Hill in DC. So just got to talk to a lot of people. And then the last one was I was very involved in Microsoft's partner action committees. They're PACs with the WPC, the old World Partner Conference, Inspire. Did about 5 years with them, building community. So it was really exciting. After 10 years of being in the VAR space, I decided, it was time to go to the dark side. I went to the ISV side. And I've been there ever since. So I'm coming up to my fourth year being in the ISV space and managing specifically Microsoft and a couple other ERPs, but really building that relationship, seeing what happens between, because I was a VAR, I felt like I was the worst customer, the worst customer any ISV could want, because I was that one that got to decide which ISVs we were going to use, what our contracts were going to look like, all of that stuff. So flipping to this side now, trying to get that from the partner side, is unique. And then I started a little online community. So in LinkedIn, we have several hundred people in a forum, in a group. Basically, Dynamics ISVs and partners collaborate, and that kind of built out of a panel I was doing at Directions, which I've done several years. Directions North America. I've done basically a panel that's like, what does ISVs want from partners, and what do partners want from ISVs? And we had lots of people in that room. So that's my journey, and I'm sticking to it. I've learned a lot from other great people in the community, and I'm just another Indian part of the group out here.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And yeah, I mean, what a journey. And obviously that's great that you, I mean, I guess we're going to touch on community a lot, but that's what's so good about the community, isn't it? Is that everyone is willing to teach, and therefore if you're coming into it new and you have an open mind, and obviously we speak to people all the time, and we always encourage people to do like what you did 14 years ago, which is get involved with the community, because everyone there, in particular, I mainly work in the Microsoft space, but particularly the Microsoft community is very collaborative and very happy to help, and there's a lot of knowledge there that people are willing to share. So for anyone that's listening or watching that's say new to their career, or just wants to go and learn more, like, it's a brilliant community to get involved with. And conferences are the pinnacle where you can kind of go to multiple sessions and meet with some brilliant people like yourself. So
it was funny. Even yesterday I got pinged from a person in the past, someone from IMCP. Probably I haven't talked to this person probably 7 or 8 years, and he texted me and said, "Hey, David, I'm looking for a position. I'm interviewing for a position in the Microsoft space again. I'd love to, pick your brain and kind of talk about what the current state is like. Let's book some time." And so it's really an honor to be looked at and pinged and build a team here at Paystand of amazing channel partners. I'd love to work with other partners out there. And, I don't know, I don't know everything. That's definitely, the one thing. There's some amazing people out there. I was joking with my leadership yesterday. If I knew the master formula, if I had that crystal 8-ball out, I'd actually be probably a consultant selling my services to other ISVs and partners to do better. But we're learning every day how to build those relationships. What do VARs really want from ISVs? What differentiates an ISV? I'm in a very crowded space. AR is a very crowded space. AR and AP probably combined the most, and people management. People. Kind of like the 2 ecosystems we're in are probably. You go to these shows and you could throw a rock and hit 20 of us. How do we differentiate ourselves, and what does that really mean? And how do we take those relationships to the next step?
That's great. Well, let's touch on that bit, because I think that's obviously something you do a lot of talk about. Is, I mean, let's do it from the let's do it from the VAR side first, I guess. I mean, what do VARs? Again, I know you probably talk about this for hours when you're at a conference. So, but I mean, what are maybe the 3 key takeaways? What would what does a VAR want from an ISV? Let's start with that, I guess. What do you think they want the most?
From my experience, and again, I'm not an expert, but there's some amazing people out there in these roles. I think it's trust, it's honesty, it's communication. That all drives from communication. Make sure there's true communication. If an ISP is working with a VAR's customer, make sure the VAR knows that they're working together. There's different models, direct versus only referral, and you don't want to mess that up. But I think the key to the success is knowledge, education, and also just don't mess up my customer. That's the key. Is from the VAR side, it's hard enough to sell an ERP today. It's hard enough to keep a customer happy with the ERP. There's so much complexities with every single customer. Think about Business Central. There probably is not any 2 customers that are identical. And that's probably a proven fact. And even companies that have multiple companies, they're not exact within their own organization. So how do we listen to our customers' requirements, their needs, partner with that VAR, and really take it to that next level to solve a customer's problem, and do it with a lot of value. What is that value? Are you opening up new revenue streams for them to grow their business? Are you creating efficiency? Everyone talks about digital automation or taking it to the next step, but really the key is the VARs don't want you to mess up their customers. I think that's the number one. So have really good. You have to have exceptional support. You have to be exceptionally timely and highly responsive. Our channel partner managers are amazing. They're probably the best in the industry. At the end of the day, I ask them to follow up and follow up and follow up and almost to the point of nausea. But you want to make sure that you're present. But it's not like begging. It's educational. Make sure they understand, especially like I said in our space. And I don't want to make it all about pay standard, but at the end of the day, what differentiates you from one AR provider to another? Or if you're in the warehouse management space, what differentiates you? And cost isn't always the decision. And I'll tell you, the more I talk to VARs, it also isn't what we're paying them. What's that? What's that referral? At the end of the day, you could pay a partner sometimes nothing and have the right solution for their customer, and they'll still choose you because you're going to deliver the best value to your customer. I just ask my VARs to wake up every morning and make sure they're delivering the right solution that's best for their customer, not what's best for them as a VAR. As a VAR, it's very important when I was a VAR to make sure I didn't have I might have had a preferred ISV, but I definitely had a backup. The preferred was probably because I knew a lot about it, or I had that really good relationship with the channel partner manager and the team, and they had good marketing, they had good, good tools to help me be successful as a VAR. But at the end of the day, you're not really a consultant if you're always recommending the same ISV.
No.
You're truly doing what's best for your customer.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it, actually. Yeah. I suppose, and I guess as time goes on, you get to learn. I suppose once you've got a history of success, then you also get a preferred ISV, don't you? Because you've obviously seen that they, well, like you say, they don't, don't mess up the customer, which is number one. So if they don't mess up the customer, they start to become more preferred, I guess. But you're right, the customer might want different things, which is where you need different options to present.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of new players every single day in every single business category. I do this presentation kind of like, what is ERP? And you talk about these business categories inside of a business. And there's, minimum about 20 or 25 business processes from the front door to the back door of the business. And at the end of the day, ISVs, like we play with 5 of them. At the end of the day. So that's like 25% of a business's needs. Well, there's someone else that plays with the other 25, and there's someone else. You're competing with the CFOs or the CXOs' attention also. So you don't want to take from, it's hard because it's like, oh, am I going to do warehouse management, or am I going to do AR? Am I going to do inventory control? Am I going to do HR automation? What am I going to do? And then you work with the VAR to help prioritize those. They're the experts. They understand their customer best. So you don't want to compete for both resources financially as well as resources, just time, energy, things like that. So, with the VAR's overall strategy with that customer as well. So really talking to the VAR and saying, hey, what is your customer's main goals the next 12 months? What are they trying to do? And if you're a really good trusted VAR, you're going to know that about your customer.
Yeah. And so is that what you think an ISV would need from, what does an ISV want from a partner then? You think that the ISVs need the knowledge of the customer to be able to, what I guess, what do you think, what's like the key relationship?
I think a lot of it's the knowledge, the relate to kind of, what they say, ride on the coattail of the relationship of the VAR. Again, that's the VAR is typically the trusted partner. I know I used to be told when I was a VAR, like, Pretend that you're on the board of directors of your customer. Like you should be involved in those type of really true business decisions of what the customer is doing because you're that trusted advisor. So the ISV just kind of has to catch on to that, but the VAR needs to bring them in, to a certain degree. We hear you talking about, your cash flow is really tight right now. Well, how hard is, what are you doing to collect revenue? Do you want to make it easier? Do you want to get paid faster? Maybe you want to talk to like a pay stand or, a solution. Maybe, oh, I heard you were struggling with sales right now. Maybe, maybe we need to look at your inventory valuation. Is that, oh, here's this company that can come in and talk to you about that. Things like that, and being present. Again, like what I want is, I want to be able to be brought into a lot of, deals early, part of helping you really tighten that value proposition, provide the value, create the extra revenue for the customer, create that profit that helps them spend money specifically on like the Business Central project or the GP to Business Central re-implementation. Those aren't cheap. So if other ISVs out there can help save money, then that makes that project less expensive. And getting VARs to really understand that. It's interesting. VARs are very protective of their clients, their processes, their methodology, and it's unfortunate. In my panel that I do at Directions, we get like 90% ISVs and 10% VARs in the room. I wish that was different. I really wish the VAR community would be a little bit more front. I love my VAR partners. Don't get me wrong. I want to learn more from them. Like, what do they do? I want to send out surveys to them and be like, how can we be a better ISV to you? How can we serve you? Have that servant mentality with the VAR community because, we're so dependent on them. They've got the power.
Out of interest, what stage of the do VARs, so say there's a customer and they're about to sign the deal where they become their VAR, do they bring ISVs onto the call sort of pre-signing the customer, or do they do it just after? Well, I mean, I know it varies, but just like
Alex, that's that's that magic 8-ball. If we have that crystal ball that we can figure out, I think it depends on the ISV. And what service, there's the need to have and the nice to have. These ERPs out there, the cloud mid-market ERPs, I'm in the, Sage Intacct, Acumatica, NetSuite, Business Central. Those are primarily those places. They come pretty robust. 80-90% of the solution can fit 100% of the customers out there. Like, they're very comfortable. They're very good. So it's how do you fill that gap, and then when do you fill that gap? Can you go live? My example, can you collect revenue from all of your customers in all formats with all the ways you want at the best price before you go, when you go live, or do you want to go 6 months doing it a different way and then maybe, feeling it's too hard of a project to do later? Obviously if you're a manufacturer and you need a better planning software, you're going to need to go live with that. Or, so it really depends on the ISV. Reporting solutions. Okay, well, those are really powerful and they're really great. And you've got some great Power BI and you've got some great other solutions, but do you need a Data Courage, or do you need a Cosmos, or do you need some other, insight software? Do you need something else later? Well, you need data for that. So if you're a brand new company going in a brand new platform and you're not migrating a lot of historical data, well, you're going to probably want to wait a couple months before you have the data.
True.
So I think it depends on that. But for me, it's always funny. It's like, your customers collect revenue. How do they collect revenue? And do they want to do it faster, cheaper, save money, be more automated, all those things, from day one? Or do they want to have a lesson learned and do it later?
Yeah. It's really interesting. Because I've been in the space some time, and I'm still sort of kind of getting my head around the ISV VAR relationship. It's definitely it's an interesting one, isn't it? And it's kind of a complex one. And I guess from the customer's standpoint, do they? I was thinking about this the other day. If you're a customer, is there any sort of place where you could go and say, what ISVs will I need? Does that exist?
Yeah. So there's some fantastic resources out there. So, most of the cloud ERPs have digital marketplaces. So AppSource, the SDN network for NetSuite, the Sage Marketplace, Acumatica Marketplace. They have marketplace, and that's almost if you're not in those spaces, you got to check them off. Do we get a lot of leads from them? No, but they're kind of like the telephone, the old Yellow Pages. Have a catalog, have that. The old, Dynamic Communities Inc. used to publish their magazine years ago, and in the back it was like the index, or it had like all the list, it was called, I think. But there's like the partner index out there now that is out there. ERP Software Blog has a lot of things. MSPW. There's so many different digital marketplaces. G2 or whatever that find software, accountingsoftware.com. There's so many of these resources that as ISVs, we have to position ourselves strongly in those, because we do know. It's funny, John Rivers and I we're doing a session. We just got accepted for Community Summit, and we're talking about how does AI play in the decision making of the customer journey. What influence does the partner versus the ISV have on that? Who should have that influence? How does that customer buying journey happen? We all know that digital buying now happens. What is it? 60-70% of the decisions made before they've even reached out to you. Whether or not it's to buy the ERP or to buy the AR solution. So how do you capture that at 70% to 100%? What are you going to do during that 30% buying decision? That's separate. MSCW came out with a really good survey about what do partners think. And I missed the session. They just did it at DynamicsCon last week in Chicago. It was like, what do partners think customers are doing? Take their buying decision. And then what do customers really do? And there is quite a discrepancy.
I can imagine that.
We have to take that data as an ISV or a VAR and readjust our strategies. And double click into that.
Well, that's 70% as well. Like you say, that's an interesting statistic, isn't it? That the decision's almost made straight away. So you're having to do a lot of kind of front end marketing, aren't you? And a lot of front end convincing before, it's not like you all get to go in a room at the same time and do a pitch, is it? You've got to get the timing really right.
The days of the half day, 1 day web demos, unless you're a very, very complicated manufacturer, just type of organization. I remember in my early days when I was selling Nav, I did 2 and 3 day discoveries on site, and then you do the 2-day demo, and you coordinate all these ISVs, and you spray some magic dust, and you just pray that the network doesn't go down, and that Bob, who's at this ISV, can join at the right time. And I think we're doing those. I've been out of the VAR space for about 4 years, so I'd love to know what other VARs are doing. That's an interesting the conversation after this. But I'm not being brought into these half-day demos anymore, even as an ISV. The VARs do want self-service. They want to be able to show the solution. They want to be able to tell the solution. They want to be able to kind of almost pre-sell it and then say, hey, I've got this opportunity. So we have to all do a better job, I think, in this space to provide those tools and resources to make them a bit more independent, but not experts. It's hard to just know Business Central. It changes so often.
Yeah.
Like, it's just interesting. But there's some great conferences to learn all that. That's where we network. We bring our customers and our partners together. We bring our ISVs and partners together, whether or not it's, Community Summit or Dynamics Con or Directions, EMEA, Directions NA, or whatever it is. There's so many opportunities for us to work together and really just become, again, that community.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited. Post-COVID, thank goodness we're back. We're live again. We're really we're touching and feeling and breathing and breaking bread together and enjoying ourselves during what Bob McAdams calls it, the after-hour networking, event, also known as parties. But they're long days. Dynamics Con last week was 7 a.m. to 1 in the morning. It was long days, but if you're not present, it's almost more expensive to not be there than to be there.
Yeah. You got to be there, and exactly. For ISVs as well, everyone's got to be there, and I think
whether you're not involved in Doug or you're part of the Dynamics community, they're both great user groups. They have, fantastic communities. Again, it's the virtual communities. Those are really powerful. Are you engaging on their discussion boards? Are you posting articles or new white papers or new, articles, LinkedIn posts? Are you participating in the groups in LinkedIn? Are you running groups like myself? What are you doing? And all of that just expands out of community. It just gets better and better. And I think humans thrive for that right now. Like, there's so much noise in the world. Like, we're kind of in our safe spot. Microsoft, specifically Microsoft, and I'm in the Acumatica community as well. It reminds me of the old GP community. Very small, very intimate. The GP team is amazing. They're still, they're such committed consultants and partners that are still in that space, knowing that the product has kind of an end of life, and they're still fighting. And they'll be always joke that the dexterity code is going to be buried next to them in their in their coffin. They're so close to that code. But that is what community is. There's nothing. The good old days when who was it? Ingevity would have their little party, and there'd be 600, 800, 1,000 GP users and ISVs and partners dancing and doing karaoke till 3 in the morning. There's now that. And now there's the BC Bash, the Shannon Nolans and other people, Blue Dragonfly, and so many other, Tanya, and so many other people are part of, Ben Cole at ERP Connect. There's these great little niches of these communities that really just drive. These people are friends. They know my kids' names. They know, what I do after hours. They know, when I have good days and bad days. It's beyond, and that's what community is. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and that they might be leaving the space. They're looking at some other opportunities, and I'm like, that's kind of, I'd be like in mourning if I couldn't go to these events, if I couldn't do part of these things, couldn't be talking to great people like you, Alex, and sharing the story. Like, there'd be a sense of a loss there.
They are amazing. Everyone's very welcoming. You can tell when you go to these events, and because it's really interesting. Like at Summit, obviously, there's probably more customers, aren't there, than anywhere else? And I think they're always, you sometimes get first-time customers, and they're super impressed by, well, first, like how well the event is run and put on, and secondly, how many people are there to help, and there's so much going on. And I think for them sometimes it's first like us, it's almost a bit overwhelming because there's so much going on that it's how do you take in all this knowledge? There's so many sessions, but it is a fantastic place to learn. Like you say, it's busy, but you learn a lot, and you just got to make sure you can remember some of it. There's a lot of information, so you gotta keep it all in there. But it's still they're fantastic events, and long may they continue. And like you say, thank goodness.
They just get bigger and bigger. I heard, Dynamics Con had a couple thousand people, like 95 booths. I heard they're shooting for 200 booths next year.
Wow, okay.
In Las Vegas, and I mean, I think that's good because as a customer, these customer events, they're definitely different than Directions. When you go to Directions, you're with a bunch of partners and ISVs, and I think you kind of let your guard down a little bit because customers aren't there. You learn a lot. You kind of air out some dirty laundry to each other. You talk about certain things. You get much more real because there isn't the customer standing behind you possibly.
Yes.
And then when you're at Acumatica Summit or you're at Community Summit or you're at Dynamics Con or you're at Sage Future or any of these, Sweet World, any of these other customer-centric events, you become prim and proper all of a sudden, a little bit different, and, a little bit of fakeness, but the reality is you're there for your customers. You're there to show off and showcase and be the differentiator between you and the other, AR provider, or the other AP provider, or the other, warehouse management provider, or the other reporting tool, because there's never one of anything. There's always going to be chances. And how do you outshine? Do you have the best swag on the floor? Do you have the best booth? Do you, those are the things that unfortunately become important. And I wish they were less as important. I wish they were more, I wish we cared more about the solutions and the value than, what. It's funny at the end of conferences, people are always walking around, where's that laser pen? Where's that? Who had a really cool, mouse pad or whatever it is? But, it's beyond that. As a VAR, it was much more than that to me. It was, again, don't mess up my customer, provide value. How are you going to help accelerate that relationship? How can you help me with my customer accelerate that relationship or help close that ERP deal at the end of the day? And to me, a mouse pad or a T-shirt isn't going to make a difference.
So I do like that everyone goes crazy for it at the end of the conference. I like that.
Well, the last thing you want to do is ship everything back anyway, right?
Exactly.
We don't want to box it up.
No.
But
Agreed. That's fantastic. And and one final question, which we always ask every guest, is if you weren't in the technology space, or maybe if you were, but if you weren't in doing what you're doing, what would your dream job be if it was outside of Paystand and Dynamics?
So our family has a side business, and I'm not going to plug it or anything, but we have a small retail business. And
cool.
It would be fun to really just grow that and be part of that. But if I wasn't doing that, I just want to make people better. I thrive. One of my love languages is really just knowing that people appreciate. I'm an attaboy type of guy. I really do like those little, acrylic plaques. That makes me happy. What can I do to better people? So again, like, would I? People are always like, David, are you ever going to spin off and do this for other company, like be a consultant? So I think just helping others, building people. So I don't know, I love what I do. I absolutely love, there was a point in my career where I almost left this space. And I really thought hard and I couldn't. This is where I think I'm going to, end my career is in this space somewhere, sometime.
Fantastic.
I'm still young. I still have 10 plus years probably in my belt, but I just love making the community better. So maybe it's joining one of the community organizations and really doing, but I absolutely love Paystand. It's a great organization. I love developing my channel partner managers, my sales reps, building relationships, and just influencing others. So I think I just continue doing this for now until, I grow old.
Well, you'd be fantastic at whatever you did, So it's just, I think you're, so well liked and respected in the channel, and we thank you so much for being a guest today on the podcast, and I'm sure we will connect at Summit in a few months. Well, quite a few months, but in a few months.
We're already planning for it, so yeah, I'm excited. We'll be in Orlando this year, I think.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So well, thank you very much, Dave, for coming on, and for everyone listening, we've got another episode in a couple of weeks. So thank you very much for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks so much. It's my honor. Thank you.
Thank you.